Good morning, YouTube. It's your guy J Crew to you, coming at you with another video here on this day, Saturday, June 18th, 2022. Though it's been a few weeks since I've done a video, but I feel like the spirit has moved me to do at least another video this morning in regard to a person that, if you paid attention to any of the major television networks, and if you're following the political sphere, you probably heard about it. Probably not in a too good of a way. I want to come at you all with another video here. And this video is going to be talking about a guy that's known already in the athletic world, in the realm of football especially, and also a guy who's becoming more known in negative ways in the political world. Uh, uh, Georgia Senate GOP candidate Herschel Walker. Um, if any of you all have been paying attention to what's been going on with Herschel Walker over the past two to 3 months, you probably have been more than anything just kind of laughing at him more than being respectful of who he has been and what he is. I'm gonna just kind of start from the beginning and just kind of spout off what I know about Herschel Walker, and then I'm gonna get to what the main gist of my video is. And I've kind of talked about him in other athletic videos I've done, but I'm gonna do it again just to give you the proper context, so I can really kind of fully explain who he is. Herschel Walker was born and raised in the state of Georgia, a state that I'm from. So obviously, I know about him. If you were born and raised in the state of Georgia, I don't care what your interests are. You probably have heard somebody talk about Herschel Walker, or you probably know about Herschel Walker himself. Herschel Walker was basically a spectacular athletic talent, dating back to his high school days in Wrightsville, Georgia, which is in Johnson County, in central Georgia. Also, what has made him such a legend is that Herschel Walker was an All American high school running back and a defensive player coming out of high school. And he went obviously to the University of Georgia in the fall of 1980, where he led them to a national title that year after rushing for over 1,600 yards. And many people felt like he should have won the Heisman Trophy that year, but he did not. Herschel then, over the next 2 years, continued to set numerous records at the University of Georgia and finally win the Heisman Trophy in 1982. And most people feel like that was long overdue, but he won the Heisman Trophy, which is the award for the best overall collegiate football player. So that alone made Herschel, just somewhat of a known commodity and a known icon in Georgia, just because he was able to be a part of a team at the University of Georgia that went and won a national title with him leading them as a freshman, and then he won the Heisman Trophy a few years later. Herschel Walker was also, I think, a track and field star. He was a guy that ran track and field, at Georgia. He did pretty well. And so the reason I even mentioned the track and field stuff is it put him on the level in some regards of a Bo Jackson, also another well-known athlete who played both football, track, and baseball, and Deion Sanders, another guy who played two or three sports at a high level. So, in other words, this guy is somewhat of an athletic marvel. And Herschel has always been seen as the creme de la creme, of athlete, in terms of guys who are top tier, guys who did well in multiple sports, and guys who are just straight up legends. Uh, Not long after he won the Heisman Trophy in 1982, the next year in '83, instead of coming back to the University of Georgia in the fall and to play another year of football, Herschel defected to what was then known as the USFL, the United States Football League. And it was a football league that was new. And I think that was part of the reason why he defected there, was because he wanted to go ahead and take advantage of opportunities that came before him. And he wanted to go ahead and get paid and, play professional football. And so he did. And he played in that league for I don't know how many years, maybe 2 to 5 years, maybe until the league folded. And he then defected to the NFL. And I think he went to be a Dallas Cowboy first. And then I think he was traded to the Minnesota Vikings, where he kind of played some more years. And then I think he played for the Eagles. He basically became like a journeyman player in the National Football League, the NFL. So he had a few Pro Bowl years here and there, but he was just okay in the NFL. But he was for the most part a journeyman player who became forgotten about. The significance of that is that when Herschel um, was traded to the Vikings, or what was that, 88, 89, or whatever, and from the Dallas Cowboys to the Minnesota Vikings, it set the stage for what became the championship year for the Dallas Cowboys, because they got some players and they got a whole bunch of picks, in the NFL draft in the upcoming year. So the Dallas Cowboys used that as a building block to construct their championship squads. So it's seen as one of the more lopsided and idiotic trades in NFL history, with Minnesota getting the negative end of it, given that Herschel um, um, was seen as a guy who was talented, but he wasn't worth no several draft picks. And the Minnesota ended up hurting over that. And it kind of took away from what they were attempting to do. Um, Herschel eventually retired, I believe, maybe in the late 1990s, the mid late 1990s. I think he retired from football, and I think he began to open up businesses and whatnot. And I think he was a fairly successful businessman. I think he opened up maybe like a chicken plant or something, and he's done a few more things in the business world that brought him respectability. But over the last several months to a year, what's brought Herschel Walker back into the spotlight is that he declared a desire at the urging of his friend Donald Trump to run for one of these senatorial seats here in the state of Georgia. Uh, those senatorial seats are currently occupied by John Osendorf and another gentleman by the name of Reverend Raphael Warnock. Reverend Raphael Warnock has become the primary target for Herschel Walker, as he wants to claim his seat that he won a few years back. And Georgia has always tended to be like a red state, meaning they've been like heavily Republican. But during the presidential election over the past year, along with the senatorial election, of course, President Biden won Georgia in terms of getting the most votes, and Raphael Warnock won that senatorial seat. And so ever since Raphael Warnock won that seat, the Republicans have been sort of zeroing in on how they can get that seat back from him to gain a political advantage in Congress. And what they decided to do, it was kind of weird, given what we're seeing from him, is that, uh, as you know, even during the presidential election, Donald Trump was down in Georgia a lot, and so he was pushing certain candidates. Like David Perdue, who lost in the Republican primary to become governor. He was pushing him over the current governor, Brian Kemp. And 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 but again, they also want to get this state back in terms of being like a politically favored red state. And so they targeted Raphael Warnock, who won that senatorial seat again. And what they decided to do is that, of course, they got to pick someone who they feel they can stand up to him with both notoriety and respectability, at least in theory. And that person ended up being Herschel Walker. And you might say, why in the world they picked Herschel Walker? Yeah, he was a great football player, but he did not have any political roots or any political past to speak of. He's popular and he played football. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more here shortly. And on the Republican side, but before the primaries were decided a few weeks ago, and they went with Herschel Walker as their candidate, there was another gentleman that I know of that was running named Gary Black. He was the Georgia Department of Agricultural Commissioner. He had been the commissioner at the Georgia Department of Agriculture for the past 10, 11 years. And he decided to throw his hat in the race and run for this senatorial seat. But Gary Black, he was respected to an extent, but he just wasn't as known. So in Republican circles, they felt like he maybe couldn't stand up to a political competitor like the Reverend Raphael Warner, somebody who kind of, is obviously, with his title being Reverend, he's a pastor at Martin Luther King's church, Ebenezer Baptist Church in downtown Atlanta. And so, he's a religious guy. is Raphael Warnock on the Democratic side. So the Republicans wanted to put somebody out there who had respectability and notoriety. They felt like they could combat Raphael Warnock, so they chose Herschel Walker. And so Herschel Walker, he began to sort of go around the state, I guess, talk to people and ask them, about different issues and sort of put his face out there as a potential Republican nominee. He officially put his name in the hat earlier this year as a candidate who's going to be running for that senatorial seat. And, he's been kind of making the rounds on political talk shows and whatnot. But if you heard Herschel Walker speak, there's a couple of things you might notice about him. Some people who are not from the South might listen to him and say, man, that guy, he sounds kind of slow. He sounds kind of dumb the way he talk. And me being from the South, sometimes we can speak in broken English like that. But let me say this, not as bad as Herschel Walker. When I've heard Herschel Walker talk, I've even equated him to a black Forrest Gump at times. He sounds that slow when he speaks. If you follow Herschel's story, uh, he played, as I said, he played football. And during his USFL days, he played for the New Jersey Generals, I believe. And I think Donald Trump bought that football team, which brings into focus that initial connection between him and Trump. So Trump was a part of an organization which Herschel Walker played for. So that's how they became known to one another on a personal level. And they remain friends ever since. Hence is another reason why he's been pushed as a Republican candidate, given that Trump was, a president for 4 years from 2016 to 2020. So Trump, who's kind of floating the idea of running again against Joe Biden, has thrown the idea out there that, hey man, I want to come back in this race and I want to push people who favor me or who I have relationships with. And Herschel Walker is one of those guys. The only thing about Herschel Walker is that if you follow him over the past 2 to 3 months, you've been more embarrassed by him being a Georgian than anything. Mainly because, like I said, when you listen to Herschel, he sounds like he's a little slow-witted. Like he's not quick from an articulation standpoint. You can barely understand what he says at times. And again, I tried to give him a benefit of the doubt because I'm from Georgia. And I know how that is. Sometimes people criticize you and they don't know that we kind of speak in broken English at times. Herschel has tried to, promote a positive image, going around with his oldest son. I think his name is Christian. His oldest son, Christian, is like 22, I believe, 23, somewhere in that area. And but there have been things that Herschel has said that has come back to haunt him over the past 2 to 3 months. He's made a lot of political gaffes. If you guys thought that former President George Bush Jr. sounded so like idiotic at times, Herschel Walker has trumped him, and a pun intended, by 10 times. As people know, gun control has been a debated issue for the past decade in our country. Ever since that tragedy that happened at that elementary school, Sandy Hook, has taken place, and recently down there in Texas at that other elementary school. I think it's Uvalde, Texas, where it was another elementary school where 20-something kids were killed along with a teacher. It's been very, very tragic. So over the past 2 to 3 weeks, Herschel Walker has been asked his opinion on various issues, and it has really come back to bite him. And I have a clip pulled up here, and there's like this journalist who was at Herschel Walker's after party for when he was elected as the official GOP nominee over Gary Black, on the Republican side to run against Raphael Warnock. Some journalists asked Herschel Walker, hey man, what's your opinion on gun control? I want you to hear for yourself what Herschel Walker said, and I want you to kind of maybe comment and see what you can understand what he said.
Connor Roger, CNN. I know. Are you just supporting new gun laws in the wake of this Texas shooting? Do what now? Do you support new gun laws in the wake of this Texas shooting?
What I like to do is see it and everything and stuff. I like to see it and everything. My favorite New Jersey.
Thank you.
I hope you understood what Herschel Walker said, because even as a country boy from Georgia, I couldn't understand what the heck he just said. This guy said, I would like to know your opinion on gun control. Herschel Walker literally replied in a very Forrest Gump like way. What I like to do is to see it in everything and stuff. Okay, Herschel, what do you need to see? What do you need to see? Again, I'm trying to break down what he said. He said, what I like to do is see it and everything stuff. What do you need to see, man, to have an opinion on that? Like, what else do you need to see? Like, I'm trying to make sense of what he was saying because it didn't make any sense to begin with. But I was trying to make some sense of what he was saying. And then he says, in everything and stuff. He sounded like a person who is literally full of mental retardation with his answer. He sounded like he's mentally retarded. That's what he sounded like. He didn't have any sort of opinion that was sensible that you could point to say, oh, that's what he's talking about. No, he sounded totally inarticulate. He sounded Forrest Gump like. I would expect Forrest Gump to be able to make a statement like that. And I said, oh, okay, that's why he said that. And that's literally how Herschel has sounded in a lot of ways over the past several months to a year, when people have asked him his political opinions on stuff. And to me, I will say that, yeah, he sounds slow, but I'll also say this. To me, it's just an indication that he doesn't know what he's talking about. And his handlers, who are sort of pushing him around as a Republican candidate, haven't thoroughly gone over what he needs to say in terms of his opinion. You know, that's safe from the Republican standpoint. He sounds totally incoherent. He sounds like an idiot. But that's how he sounds like with a lot of things he said. But it's not just been how he says it. It's what he said with a lot of issues. Herschel Walker, tried to promote himself by saying, yeah, I was a college graduate. I think some of the media had went back through his college transcripts. He never graduated from college. And as I talked to you before about, I said he left the University of Georgia after his first 3 years to take advantage of an opportunity to play professional football in the USFL. So he never came back to finish his degree in criminology, because I think he was taking criminal justice, in college. That's the degree track he was on. So he never finished school, but he said he was a college graduate. Staying on the educational lane, he also said he was the valedictorian of his high school class. And I remember I heard that years ago when he did a documentary with ESPN called SEC Story. He was mentioning that he was the valedictorian of his high school class. Ironically, if you go back and you visit, you got to look at Herschel's high school graduating class, what you will see was that he had one of the top GPAs in the school, but he wasn't really the valedictorian. Back then, they did not even designate who was a valedictorian. So he just came out, just kind of said that. He kind of sort of finessed that comment in there. Yeah, I mean, he may have had one of the top GPAs in the school, but you weren't necessarily voted as a valedictorian. That's another statement where he put his foot in his mouth. And I think he's even said that he had law enforcement experience. He said he literally was working with the police department of some municipality, I think, in Georgia. And then he said he also worked with the FBI. Nobody has been able to confirm that he has any law enforcement experience. In other words, Herschel Walker just kind of doing a lot of lying about his accomplishments. He doing a lot of lying. I think he's even said, even with his businesses, that he initially came out saying we didn't take no PPE money. I think it was confirmed that some of his businesses did take PPE money, from the government during this pandemic that we've been going through over the past 2 to 3 years. But one of the biggest things over the past week that really even pushed me to do this video has been that it's been revealed that Herschel, who was always thought to only have one child, his son Christian, that you see a photo of him with, it's been discovered that early this week, it was initially reported that he had one illegitimate son. I think over the past decade or so that he's never talked about publicly. And Herschel said, yeah, he did have an illegitimate son. And he said he paid child support, but he wasn't really there for the child. So it was just a mother raising the child. He paid child support. Well, late this week, within the last couple of days, it's been confirmed he had 2 more illegitimate children. And so I think he had another boy and a girl. So Herschel Walker had just done nothing but put his foot in his mouth over issues. He sounds like an American idiot. Why do I say he sounds like an American idiot with this particular issue? Over the past decade or so, when Herschel Walker has gotten time to do interviews, he's come out, he said that, black men in particular need to take care of their children, whether you get along with the mother or not. You need to take care of your children. And he's done various interviews saying he said one of the problems in the black community. Well, sir, you're a part of that problem because you ain't took care of them children. You might pay for them financially, but you have not been there, as the press has discovered. I think this story about his last 2 children was ran initially by the New York Times, like on Wednesday or Thursday. And so, who knows? Herschel Walker may have some more children out there, but it's another thing you could point at to say, sir, you're not really following what you're saying. And what it makes Herschel Walker look like more than anything is a typical politician. It makes him look like a typical politician, the guy who espouses a certain way of living. I think he promotes his Christianity. I'm a Christian, but you don't live what you speak. One thing I haven't mentioned was that even when Herschel Walker was married back in the 80s and 90s to his, I think, first wife, Cindy Grossman, he was known to be a physical abuser. He abused her. He beat all over the place. He's had other domestic violence incidents with past girlfriends. And so he just hasn't been this guy who's lived what he promotes. Again, it's kind of not surprising. That's what a lot of politicians do anyway. They don't live what they speak. And that's where we're at with Herschel Walker. And so that's where we've been at with this guy. He doesn't live what he speaks. And so I guess what I've been trying to say, this dude to me has been taking more hits in the political arena than he ever took on the football field, in terms of something that's been very negative from a press standpoint. Let me throw this in there. Herschel Walker he has admitted that he had like multiple personality issues. I think in the 2000s he did interviews about how he was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. It's a form of mental illness, and he was diagnosed with that, I think, in the 2000s. And he tried to explain how that affected him in different ways. He tried to say that's probably why he was so abusive to his past girlfriends and wives, and why he's done certain things in his life that may not seem to be on the up and up. But I mean, I don't even know if I want to say it's that as much as that disease that a lot of football players are known to get once they retire, that CTE. I can't really regurgitate what that means. I think it's like chronic something. But I can't remember what that means. But I think he's showing signs of that, because if he gets caught in so many gaffes, I'm starting to think this dude really got a problem. And so I think it's unfortunate that the GOP went with Herschel Walker as a nominee, because, like I said at the beginning of this video, he's an icon here in the state of Georgia, who is quickly just becoming a complete joke. Herschel Walker is becoming a complete joke, and it's been real sad to watch, because I didn't never see this happen. I didn't never see this happening with this guy. It's all his lies being exposed. He walks around talking about I'm a Christian, and then we know he's not living a very Christian life. Again, no surprise, but it's still hard to see that with a guy who's considered to be one of our icons in the state of Georgia. She got J. Crew to you, giving you my opinion on Herschel Walker here, and just want to come at you with a video here today on this Juneteenth Father's Day weekend. Ironically, talking about some of Herschel Walker's issues being the Father's Day weekend. Happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to subscribe. Y'all have a good weekend, man. I know I will. I'm out of here.